Hello and welcome everyone. Happy Saturday. Thank you for joining us for our panel discussion on casting. My name is Melinda Valente. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement for Emerson College. So we're glad that you're here today. I'm just going to make a couple of quick announcements. If you could all, we've been on Zoom for so long now, we all know, but if you could just make sure to keep yourself on mute during the panel so that we're eliminating background noise. If you do put your setting on speaker view, you should be able to, we're gonna highlight all the panelists so you'll be able to see all the panelists. You can keep your video on, of course, during the panel discussion. We do have a few events coming up for Emerson alumni and students. I'm gonna put the information in the chat later on, but we have 3 events coming up. In October, there's a virtual event with Endeavor. We have a production assistant workshop, and we also have an assistant training workshop as well. So those are all coming up in the month of October. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for those too. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our alumni volunteers who put this event together. We have Ross Gerard and Mark McCune, and they're gonna take it away from here. So take it away, Ross and Mark.
Thank you, Melinda. I'm just going to jump in real quick and say, hi, I'm Ross Gerard, class of 2008. And Mark and I both work at a company called Campfire Studios. We're really excited about putting on this panel today to talk about casting. We do put on several panels a year to help with professional development and opportunities for networking. And so if you do have any ideas for panels that you'd like to see, please put them in the chat and we'll take note. But we'd love to hear from you if there's specific topics that would be interesting. And now I'll pass it over to Mark.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we definitely want to hear about any interests or fields. We do put these on regularly throughout the year. So please stay in tune with the different mailings that Melinda puts out, as well as if you're not already on the Emerge platform. I believe it's emerge.emerson. Is it .edu or .com?
Yes, emerge.emerson.edu, exactly.
That's a platform specifically for the Emerson alumni community to stay connected, to stay up to date on different events. But without further ado, I am so excited to pass this over to our very own Chrystee Farris, who, if you aren't already familiar with her, she is the illustrious multi-hyphenate amazing person behind so many things that you've seen. Goliath, Monogamy, Scrubs, anything else. More recently, Chrystee, you should definitely fill us in. But we're so excited to have you here to host this panel, and I'll kick it to you.
All right, thank you. I don't know, I'll do a resume thing at the end or something. I know I should always be like, you should tell people what you do. You should tell people what you do. But let's get started. Before we do, I want to ask in the group that people are on, is there anybody interested in being in casting? And the second question is, are there any actors that are here? And you could just put it in the chat like actor, casting, and then that'll let me know which questions we're gearing towards. That'll help me to know actor, casting. Okay, so a little combination of both. This is great. Okay, great. Okay, so we're super excited. I think it's so important that we learn all different aspects of the business. Everybody should understand what everybody does, because I think it gives it, you appreciate what other people do. You take things a little bit more seriously. You give people, the benefit of the doubt. You're more patient with people when you understand. And I think for actors, it's important to understand what casting directors do, so that when you go in, you're not scared and you're not, oh my God, they're against me. I think it's important that we know what everybody does. So today, we have some lovely casting directors that we're going to introduce you. Our first one is Nicole, Dionne, and Robin Delano. 13 years ago, they started Stella Nova Casting and was, they were casting pirates of the Okay, Pirates of the Caribbean, Entourage, all of that. And now they're starting to cross over into the independent world. They have an Oscar award-winning short. If you have not seen it, you should definitely check it out, which is Two Distant Strangers. It is absolutely amazing. So welcome to the speaking panel here. How are you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Let me bring on the other two people, and then I'm going to start with you guys with questions. Lindsay Weismueller has been working in casting in feature films and television in Los Angeles for 15 years. She just cast Sony's Searching 2, starring Storm Reed and Nia Long, Netflix comedy Players, all right, with Damon Wayans and Gina Rodriguez, and The G Word for the Obamas. So there's a lot of great things that she has going. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And then we have Stacia Kimler. And she started off as an intern in the casting department at Sony. And then she started working with a casting company as a casting assistant in 2012. She's also an Emerson alumnus. Alumnus, I said that right. And she was the 2020 recipient of the CSA's Associate Spotlight Award. So some of her credits include Barry, The Handmaid's Tale. I love to talk about The Handmaid's Tale, Perry Mason, and The Society. So welcome, everyone. So let me ask you, just to start off, which is one of my favorite questions to ask casting directors. Did anybody start off as an actor and then became a casting director? We will start with you, Nicole.
Yeah, I grew up a dancer, and then I went to Dean College for dance, and I got scooped up by one of the theater professors there and started acting. So I moved to LA to pursue acting and dance, and I kind of fell into casting, and I did both for a while, but our focus, especially the past 10 years probably, has been mainly casting.
Nice. How about you, Robin?
Yes, I started off as a singer. So I was a music major, and I graduated from UC Irvine in California. I'm from Los Angeles. And I do, I've done some national tours from some Broadway shows and been singing my whole life. And I still sing. So I still sing and do some voice work. It seems to work well with the casting. So, but yeah, I started interning with at Nickelodeon a long time ago, right out of college, because I wanted to see what it was like working in TV and film, because I'd only been in theater. And so that's how I got started. And yeah, I was a sucky waitress and yoga teacher. So so I got a job. First, I started working for free, of course, as a casting intern, a couple days a week. And that was actually before everything was online, of course. I was like faxing sides to actors. And I also worked in theater casting too for an indie theater woman out here. And then I needed something that was a little bit more flexible because I was also an actress. And I started working in extras casting. And that's where I met Nicole. But we had a really good time at that office, and extras casting is way different than principal casting. So, but yeah, I've been casting and acting like at the same time for a while. But like Nicole said, the past probably 4 years or so, 4 to 5 years for me, it's just been casting.
And did you ever work on Keaton and Kel?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, I gotcha. Just curious. So Lindsay, how did you get started casting?
I was never an actor. I did an internship when I was in college. I came out to Los Angeles for a summer, and I did an internship for a group of casting directors that were working together at the time. Barbara Fiorentino, Rebecca Mangieri, Wendy Weidman, and Jennifer Cooper was their assistant, who I brought up to you guys earlier. And so I was their intern for a summer and just worked for free and couldn't believe that people got paid to do that. So I decided to pursue that right when I graduated and got a job my first day in LA, 2007 during the writer's strike, and I've been doing it ever since. I've worked I started out working on like Lifetime movies, Hallmark movies in an office that did primarily that. I worked at an agency, and then I sort of got back into casting and worked for about 6 or 7 years, maybe 8 years, under a couple different really high level casting directors that became mentors of mine, and then went out on my own about 6 years ago. And really just haven't ever wanted to do anything else. This is just the perfect fit for me, and I don't know what I would do if I wasn't casting. I also like teaching, but teaching actors and sort of like the casting process. So this is a fun treat for me.
And then for you, Stacia?
I had always done, performance back in childhood through like high school. But I never really felt that calling myself to be an actor. And because I do think it's a calling. And I kind of really sat down and thought about what I wanted my career to look like. And I love the relationship of acting and being adjacent to that in that world. And that kind of brought me to the realization that casting seemed like it could be a fit. So I'm an Emerson alum, and I did the LA program and did my internship there, which was amazing. And when I came back after I graduated, I reached out to my supervisors there, who were wonderful. And I said, I'm back, I'm looking for something. I really want to be a casting assistant, and took some temp work while I was applying for things. And then about a month later, I got a call from Sharon Bialy and Sherry Thomas, who are looking for someone. I had been recommended to them by Don Steinberg, who was my supervisor at Sony. And that's where it started. I've been with them ever since. I started as an assistant. I moved up to an associate with them now. And I've done a couple of casting director credits, short films and things on my own that they've let me explore. And I've been with them ever since. It's going great.
I love it. So let me ask you guys, for the actors that are out there, does postcards work? When actors send postcards, some casting directors hate it, say it's a waste
I like
of time, and some really are like, oh, I love this, I'm gonna call them in. Does it work? Does it help?
I love postcards. Our office goes through them, especially for shows that shoot in LA and you have so many roles to fill. You never know if someone is going to catch your eye in that way. And it's a really quick, easy way to put yourself on their radar. So I like them.
I don't need postcards.
Okay.
I don't hate them, but they don't work or whatever with me. I'm indifferent towards them. So maybe just send them over to Stacia's office.
Yeah. Robin and I work from home. We don't work at a studio, so we don't want to give out our home addresses for postcards. But we'll get pitch emails sometimes from an actor, or if they have news like, I have NCIS airing tonight or something. We like getting those kind of emails.
Okay. So you're okay with, if it's appropriate, for an email to come in every blue moon that says, hey, this is what I have going on right now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
if it's specific and not just, hey, can you get me a role? Because we do get those.
We get that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you guys tell everybody out there, for the people who are in casting, what a casting director does? Now, Robin, earlier you were discussing how, an independent project, you take on more roles, you have on more hats, as opposed to maybe a bigger project, that has a bigger budget. So can you just, throw out some information about that for casting directors? Hi, Caddy.
My assistant.
Kitty.
Okay. Yeah, so really, like in Nicole and I, we're indie film casting people. Like, we don't work for studio, although we both go back and forth on whether or not we should take that paycheck, but so all of our stuff is independent. So we work a lot with Lifetime, and Lifetime, the budgets are a little bit smaller. So in those instances, like, we wear a lot of hats. So sometimes we become a little bit of a line producer. Sometimes we become managers for the actors. Sometimes we have to help out their management because sometimes their management is new. So in the lower budget films, you know, we have to do a lot of that. We have to become like the sales agent. We have to know where, you know, we have to tell our producer, you know, where we think this movie fits, what demographic we feel like it fits, how much these actors are going to cost, you know. And a lot of our job, like Nicole likes to say, is managing expectations. Like, if a producer comes to us and they have $500,000 and they're like, well, you know, we want, I don't know, I always say like Brad Pitt, you know, it's like, well, sure, you know, like, sure, you know, like, let me just call up his production company real fast. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so a lot of that stuff is like, okay, we have like a group of actors, we'll make a list for you that fit into that, you know, that range of that movie range, and then maybe try to call in some favors. But like for studio stuff, like, you know, if you work for a studio, I do feel like your job is a little bit more streamlined. Like, you pretty much stay in the casting lane, you know, because everybody is delegated to a particular role. So yeah, that's how I feel about casting. It's pretty much managing expectations in indie film anyway. In indie film, yeah.
Right. How about for you, Lindsay?
What specifically though?
So the question is, you know, what does, you know, the casting director do? You know, because I think a lot of people are, you know, they just think it's just one little thing, but and Robin just discussed how, well, she takes on more hats because she does the independent. I think you work a little bit more in the, you know, mainstream portion of stuff, right? So maybe there's a difference.
I mean, I definitely do both, and that is my experience as well on indies, is that you're wearing more hats, and sometimes you come on earlier in the process to attach actors. So you're doing a lot of producerial work in that regard, attaching actors that will trigger financing. That's not always my favorite thing to do because it takes a really long time and it's really hard. But if you're really passionate about a piece, then it's definitely something that casting will do. Like the elements of my job from my experience include creative discussions. You're a director, directing actors, getting different reads from them. You're an actor, you're reading with actors and giving them something to bounce off of when you're reading with people and it's not virtual auditions. You are an attorney, negotiating deals a lot of the times, or acting as an attorney, or, you know, thinking like an attorney in that way. You're an advisor, advising the producers, the director, in terms of not just who the creative talent is that could be right for the role, but who might be interested, who might be drawn to certain characters, who might not be interested, who doesn't work for this rate, who does work for this rate, based on your own experience. You are a salesperson or an agent because you are the agent for the production to the town. So I present like a movie that I'm doing for the first time, or a director that I'm excited about that's working on the movie that I'm doing, I'm presenting that package to the agents and the managers who are then going to take that to the actors. So you're kind of like the agent for the production. And you're a therapist a lot of the time. That's a big part of the job as far as I'm concerned, and I enjoy that, and building those relationships and talking through real drama and real issues with several different parties. You're a mediator in some cases between the director and the producers and the agent and the manager, and a lot of just relationship maintenance, like friendships. I mean, that was a robotic way of saying friendships with agents and managers, and producers and directors, just kind of, I think casting is a fun part of the process for production. And so it's very social and interesting, and there's a lot of room for creative discussion and really strategic business discussion. So you wear a lot of hats. I think you have to really be a Renaissance person to work in casting, and you have to enjoy it, because it could be really overwhelming and scary if you didn't.
How does the casting director get hired? And before I jump to that question, Nicole or Stacia, did you guys want to piggyback on anything they said before I jump to this next question?
Lindsay, that was amazing. That's all I have to say.
Okay, perfect. All right. So how does the casting director get hired? We'll let you answer that question, Stacia.
Yeah, one of the other CDs might want to jump in and take it afterwards, but a lot of it comes from, some people, some studios or producers might reach out to check avails for us in the way that we would check avails for actors, to see if they're available for a project. Maybe it's someone you've worked with before. There are also instances where if you hear something's hiring and it seems amazing and it's a project that you're excited about and you want to throw your hat in the ring, you would find a way to reach out that way. And then a meeting might take place where you go in and talk creatively about how you guys, see things based on the script. And then see if it's the right fit, the right match, because, as everybody was saying, there's so much communication and collaboration. It just has to, you have to make sure that you're speaking the same language in that way. And then hopefully it all comes together and you get hired. And typically it's, especially for television, it's later in the process. Scripts are well underway and production has already started, and then you're kind of coming in to round things out with the cast. But if anyone else wants to give their.
Go ahead, Lindsay. I'm Nicole. Sorry, Nicole.
Yeah, for us, it's a lot of relationship building. When we started back in 2008, we literally answered a Craigslist ad. And we got linked up with a commercial company out of the UK, and they wanted to shoot here because it was cheaper for them to shoot here, non-union versus union there. So yeah, that's how we started, was just answering requests that were out in the world and kind of pitching ourselves. But then as you get momentum and as you start building relationships with producers and directors, they start coming back to you if they had a good experience. So now we're more in the seat of Liz Bekovec. She's Emerson alum. We got into Lifetime because of her. And Robin, I think if you want to chime in, you met her at Women in Film or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of networking, meeting people, vibing with people, and then they keep calling you to see if you're available. And if it's anyone new that comes to us, if they find our website or they see us on Production Hub or something, then they usually ask for a quote. And then we have to say, okay, well, what's the script? Is it commercial? Is it music video? Is it a feature film? Is it a short? What's your budget? How much are you paying the actors? Is it SAG or non-union? We have this big list of questions that usually we have to ask before we can give them our quote. I feel like a lot of times producers will have a few different offices in mind. So then they kind of talk about everybody's quotes, who's affordable for them, especially in the indie world. And then we'll have a Zoom meeting or something and just make sure everybody vibes. If we have ideas about the script and actors, we don't like to give too much away. We don't want to give them a big list of our ideas because we don't want them to take it and run with it. But, we'll talk about it a little bit. And then if they like our ideas, then usually they hire us.
And is it competitive for, to be hired? And you know what I mean? Is the casting world competitive in the acting world? Or
I would say commercial casting is probably really competitive because that happens so fast. And, there's offices that have really good relationships with ad agencies and commercial directors, and they tend to go back to the same people over and over again. So unless there's like a falling out, like there's no point in me and Robin pursuing somebody who's like going to Dan Bell all the time, who I have worked for, by the way. But I think we all kind of, like in the casting community too, like I don't feel like we're catty and competitive with each other. I haven't found that. I don't know if you guys in TV have found that. I feel like we all want everybody to do well, and because we're like middle people anyway. Like I think our personalities tend to be whatever works for the whole, and like let's get it all done. And we're bringing opportunities to production, and we're bringing opportunities to actors. So I feel like we just naturally aren't competitive with each other. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, so agents. So for instance, you have, you know, a TV show or whatever, a project, you know what I mean? And it's, maybe you have a short time, you know, I don't know, but how important is an agent for an actor? For instance, you know, I know in some television, they're probably getting 1,000 submissions, you know what I mean? I really don't know how many you guys get. And you only have a short period of time. Are you going to a specific amount of, you know, these top agents, we know that they have good clients. That's what I've always heard. So we're going to go that, you know, that list first, and then we'll work our way down. Do you actually open up all the packages? Well, no more packages now, everything's online. But I mean, what is the process with that? Is it important to have this great agent, or can you have a smaller agent? Are you going to be able to get in the door? Anybody can jump in for that.
I'll take that. I think it depends on the type of role you're looking at. I like, as an example, quickly, a couple weeks ago, oh no, I might be frozen. There I go. I got a call on a Monday morning at 8:30 that they were adding a role to a scene that shot that following Wednesday, but that actor has to COVID test 2 days before, which is Monday, the day they're calling me. So I don't have time to put out a breakdown. And typically, even for a one-line role, I'll get at least 5,000 submissions for that. So you have to figure out how to streamline and most efficiently go through all of that. But when you don't have time to do that and you need someone cast in the next 5 hours, you do a few things. I go to my postcards and see if there's anyone there. Or, I'll reach out to a few agents that I have relationships with, and I know that they foster really good talent. And I'll say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Who's available? Who can get this done really fast? So we rely on them in that way in those circumstances. And then, you have, if you're looking for a series regular role, there's a lot of back and forth with the agents about what the creative team is looking for. Maybe you offer a prototype, maybe they introduce you to someone you're not familiar with, or you're super familiar with them and they are pushing, but you know that it's just so not what the team has in mind. So you have to navigate that a little bit. So I think it's very situational in that way.
Right. Anybody else like to jump in on that one? I think, and the reason why I bring this up is because I know that we have a lot of young actors that are watching this today, and they might not have, an agent that's, this big time agent or a Gersh or anything like that. I just want to help them to understand what the process is so that they can learn how to get in the door.
Well, for us in indie world, we've usually put breakdowns out to agents and Actors Access. Because we work a lot in non-union, we have to go to Actors Access because a lot of people who have agencies are already union and we can't use them. So we need non-union and FICOR people. For a lot of our indies lately, anyway, in the past year and a half, I'd say. But when we do a SAG indie that's maybe more geared towards Hallmark and it's a slightly bigger budget, we always need that like Hallmark star name. So we have to deal with agents in that way. I can't try to put a no name in a lead role in that kind of movie, just because it doesn't satisfy the salespeople. So in that way, it is a bit of a catch-22. It's like you have to get the credits to get the rep like Gersh, who does all of the Hallmark people, or innovative. So that is something that actors just need to be patient for and just work hard towards. But starting out, there's plenty of work to be had without an agent and submitting yourself. I will say, because I've done some management too, and on TV, and girls, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a little harder to break into TV as a new actor, because the breakdowns usually just go on breakdown services, which is for specifically managers and agents. So if I was casting a TV show for like a 5 and under, that might go to Actors Access if it's something really specific in the type that they need or a special skill. But you don't tend to see like nurse, all ethnicities, one scene on Actors Access. You'll see that on breakdown services, which is specific to agents and managers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I would agree with everything you said. I think also it's not necessarily, so there's a barrier to entry if you don't have any rep. There are certain breakdowns you're not going to see and certain breakdowns you cannot respond to. Although I'm sure there are plenty that you can, and I've released things on Actors Access before, again, if it's really specific, and I'm not finding it otherwise, or the budget is not one that solicits the interest of agents or managers, but would the actors directly. Most of what I would release is on breakdown, which only goes to agents or managers. But at that point, once you're with an agent or a manager, to differentiate between like the big agents or managers or the smaller ones, I'd reframe it to say, there are really tiny agencies that have really good reputations, and they're really tiny agencies that, just like send you 100 submissions for the same role. And it's hard to differentiate between like what they actually, when they're submitting for a role that is like 1 line or 2 lines or something small, something that new up and coming actors would be put out for, you sort of rely on the agents or managers to put forth like who they really think would be good for the role. And so if there's an agency that just sort of like throws everything at you and that's their reputation, it's harder to trust that what you're getting from them is who they actually think could be right for the role. So I think it's more about the specific reputations of the agencies rather than like, is it a big agency or a small agency? Of course, like the biggest agencies have the reputation of representing the actors with a lot of credits, but that's not always, in fact, probably very rarely the most important thing when you're going out for the kind of roles that a new actor would be going out for. The most important thing is your headshot more than the credits. If you are going out for a role that's a guest star or co-star or under 5, or even sometimes a guest star if we're going for a certain look. And then what you do once you have the opportunity to audition. I don't care about somebody's resume unless we're looking for somebody with a resume for a role, which would be probably the bigger supporting roles, the leads, that kind of thing.
Got it. Sorry, somebody's thing just came on. Did anybody else want to jump in on that?
Sure. Well, I think getting an agent or getting a quote unquote big agent or a bigger agency, it's a process, it definitely is a process. But listen, I always say like there are no rules. You could come out to LA, run into somebody at coffee, and you never know. And they're like, hey, let's try it. Let's hip pocket. You could, I've heard everything, So Jamie Kennedy is famous. He's a comedian for representing himself, getting himself in the door. He like pretended to be another person and was pitching himself. So I'm not advocating that, but if you guys, I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done, but I always try to remind even myself, like in casting, it's a business, it's built on relationships. So the more people that the more you work, like the more you put yourself out there, even if you have a cool Instagram account or TikTok account, because that's a huge thing now, is like, that gets you out there, it gets so many people noticed. And yeah, so there's so many ways. It's just not like the traditional way anymore. So it's a little hard right now. It's been hard for the past couple of years, of course, because everyone is working from home. I think ICM is only like a quarter staffed in their building right now. But everyone I talk to, agents and stuff on the phone, sometimes they're like in Big Bear. I'm like, where are you? So some of that is a little bit harder, but it's definitely not impossible. Most series regular roles will come from the bigger agencies, just because the bigger agencies are tied to the networks, So Sony will call UTA and go, I need so-and-so. And then UTA calls whoever they rep for casting or their producers, and they go, I have someone, or I have 5 people, or see these people, So you have to think of it really as like it's like a little living network in there. But just keep working. I mean, it's a process. It's definitely a process. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because there's 3 questions that came up for me that you just said that I want to get to. One is, casting from home and self-tapes. The next one that I was going to ask is, I think I forgot the other 2. So, social media, how, how that's affecting. And the last one is the, I don't remember, but I'll come back to it. So let's jump to, I want to ask, social media, how important is that? Like, I have been I remember sitting in on a meeting that I wasn't supposed to really be in there, but executive producer for this network. And I was listening to them talk about, well, yeah, she is the better actress, but since it's going to be quick, we're going to need to go with the other girl because she has more social media followers. Even though this other one was the better actress, they went with somebody else. But I've also seen friends that didn't have a lot of social media people, and now they're on a Fox show that just aired 3 days ago. Their pilot just aired. So I've seen both. How important is it for actors to stay social? And if they're not social, is that going to hurt them?
Well, I think it's actually part of your branding. As an actor, I feel like it's a representation. I mean, Nicole and I have to check Instagrams all the time. We just had to do it for like a commercial because the producer wanted to make sure they didn't have any conflicting posts in their stuff, So, but I think Instagram, TikTok, I think there's such great platforms for creativity, like, I know a lot, like some comedian friends of mine, they get called into audition just for like their jokes on Twitter, or it kind of totally, it depends. I mean, I think it's important because as far as like Nicole and I are concerned, like we have to go and check on this stuff. We've had to before. So as far as followers, it depends like the project, like I've pitched someone who's like, maybe not the best actor, like kind of starting out, but they had like 1.2 million followers. I'm like, hey, you guys want a built-in audience? Like put him in a supporting role or put him, because you have a built-in audience. It's just becoming it's an option. It's like a suggestion. And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. It just depends. That's like my feeling on it. But I think whatever you have social media wise, it should be congruent with like who you want to present, because listen, you're presenting yourself to the world, right? So it's like, how do you want to be represented in the world? And I would just assume that people are going to look at it. I mean, especially when you're Googling yourself, like just Google yourself or DuckDuckGo yourself or whatever you want to do and like see what comes up, because that's what people are seeing, from the world. So acting is a very, it's like being private in a public situation, it's it comes with the territory. So
How about you? Yeah, how about you, Stacia?
It's interesting. So for me, it's all about visibility, I think, in your platform. And like just this morning, a friend of mine sent me this hilarious viral video parody of something. And I was like, this person's hysterical. Are they an actor? But I couldn't find his name anywhere on it, which makes me think he's probably not an actor. And if he is, that's a mistake, because this is exactly why, you never know who's looking at those videos that you're posting and making. And I came across a video a couple months ago and was like, this person's hilarious, bring him in, got the part. And that's how it happens. I think people are being very smart about how they are online to get in front of people. It's almost like now that everything is shut down, theater really isn't happening. So I can't go look at talent in the theater community, but it's now on my phone, which is really interesting. And it gives you more of that reach. In terms of number of followers and things, I've never really been in a situation where that has made any kind of difference or impact. A lot of agents now will take to using that in their pitches. This person has, 100,000 followers. And for some projects that might be important, but for me, can they act? So you gotta have both of those things, because there are a lot of people with a lot of followers that are, trying to do the acting thing and the skill isn't there. So, it's a lot of those things that you're considering and balancing.
Right. So it's important, all of you actors that are out there, obviously you went to school, so you are graduated with a degree, but it is important that you not can only do improv, but that you can actually pick up a script and be able to do a cold reading and understand how to break down that particular character. And I think that's where people run into issues, because they can do their improv, the stuff that they wrote, but they can't interpret somebody else's material. Lindsay or Nicole, did you guys want to piggyback on that?
I'll add to that. I think I've seen it both. I've seen it matter before, usually on like an indie or something like that, really needs to find ways to add a certain kind of like value to the cast. And they may not be able to afford an actor who brings that value from, a traditional like feature or television career. And so they tried to maybe add value by getting somebody in the cast who has a lot of Instagram followers or whatever. Never really in a lead role. I think it's always in like supporting role, or a role that doesn't necessarily require the kind of range that a bigger role might. So I've seen people get roles before because they have a lot of Instagram followers. That's definitely happened. I think that's not super common. So I wouldn't like build an entire career around it just because like it's happened before. I think more likely going towards what Stacia was saying, I've definitely found people on Instagram before, and I've like thought they were funny and had them read for things, even if they didn't have a lot of followers, more just because they seemed talented or they had something to offer. So that's probably to me the more valuable thing than having the followers. Although if you had both, that'd be great. It's not a bad thing to have a lot of followers, and it's certainly a talking point in agents' pitches, and it's a talking point for me too sometimes. If somebody has, but it would have to be a lot of followers, like 20 million followers, or even like 10 million followers. If somebody had 10 million followers and they're up for a supporting role and they're a good actor and talented, I would probably slip in the fact that, look, this is a following they have that speaks to their relevance in a certain demographic. It also depends on the type of project that we're talking about as well, because if it's a project that's going to have a lot of built-in publicity, they probably don't value that as much as a project that doesn't have a lot of built-in publicity. And if this person posts on their platform something talking about their movie, it is meaningful to them, whereas it's not as meaningful if the project doesn't have that necessarily in the budget, the publicity budget or whatever. So I think it's more probably not something to build your career around. If you have something to offer the world by creating content that's interesting and funny, it's definitely a way that casting can find you without having an agent or a manager. And I think that's probably that's the thing to focus on that you can actually control, and that will actually potentially get you quality auditions and work.
So let's jump to COVID. Things changed, and it was all about being in person, auditioning in person, going to producers in person, you know, that whole thing. I lived in Atlanta for maybe a year just because I was like, oh, maybe I want to move to Atlanta. And then everything moved to self-tape, which I became a pro at it, which I hated in the very beginning, and then became a pro. And then I literally was just booking off of tape. So now that COVID has hit, and it looks like that's now not just an Atlanta thing, it is now across the board. Do you feel like this is a good thing, a bad thing? Did you like it better in person? Do you like it, you know, via Zoom now self-tapes? And then now with the whole Zooming with producers, what is that experience like? So it's like a whole bunch of different questions there. So anybody, Nicole, would you like to jump in? Because you were
Robin and I actually were doing, I would say 95% self-tapes, at least as a first preliminary round with all of our projects, because they're so indie and lower budget. So production maybe couldn't afford a casting facility. Again, we don't want to invite actors into our home, no offense. So we've been doing self-tapes for years before the pandemic actually hit. So we were already used to it. I will say there is an element of missing interacting with actors, and because we both have the acting background, it made it more fun for us to be able to read with people and redirect them and like get to play in the room. And then you get a sense of like who they are and their personality. So that's an aspect that I do miss, that with the invention of Zoom, we're able to kind of get on the callback side, if we do have callbacks now. However, the annoying part is the technology glitches that we get. So it's never as like smooth as it would be in person. Because usually, you know, somebody has bad Wi-Fi or their roommate's gaming and it's like affecting like the signal and it's jumping, or, you know, like Zoom call drops. More so when Breakdown Services was trying to do their streaming online auditions, that was a nightmare. Trying to learn it, first of all, and then like actually use it. It was pretty difficult. So we kind of just stopped using that and just went to Zoom. But yeah, I mean, it's pros and cons. We can see more people if it's tape, because there's only so many people you can see in like an 8-hour span of a day. Yeah. So we can watch tapes for like 3 days, as opposed to just meeting people in one day in the room. And then we always have that to go back to reference. But yeah, we've been doing it for years, so it didn't really affect us. I will say the pandemic, if anything, slowing everybody down and kind of going back to the social media thing, I found, at least for me, I had more time to just like scroll through people who are following us on Instagram and like watching their stories and seeing what they're up to, or like DMing somebody back. Like, whereas pre-pandemic, I would never have the time to do that. So I personally like to see people's personalities, not just their acting stuff on their Instagram, because of that, because we do have more time to engage with people and like see who they are. And, you know, if somebody's like fostering a dog, I'm gonna want to bring them in because I like fostering dogs, you know, like little things like that, where it can connect you even with a stranger, you know, or you find like a similarity. It just makes people more familiar and it makes you want to help them or engage with them. But I'm curious on the TV side, because everything was in person for so long, like what it's been like for them.
Yeah, Lindsay, Stacia. Yeah, go ahead. Stacia.
It's not been fun for me. There are pros and cons. I think everything you said is really spot on there. Really, there's something you just miss not having the personal connection in the room. Not only do you you don't have the immediacy of adjusting someone in the moment. So what I would say is if you are submitting a self-tape, I like when you send at least 2 takes, as long as they're different. Don't send me 2 takes that are exactly the same, because that happens sometimes and there's just no reason for that. Send 2 takes with different takes on it, because we realize that you're doing this in a vacuum. You may have never met me. You have no information. You might be reading dummy sides. All the names are changed. Like, it's nothing. And you don't get the benefit of coming in and asking me those questions. So I have no problem with that. Even send 3 if you want. I wouldn't send a million, you know, I just use your best judgment on that. And if it's something straightforward, let it be straightforward. Don't feel like you have to stand out and make an impression in that way. Just like interpret it based on the tone of the show. You know, if you're not familiar with the show, it's not inappropriate to ask whoever's asked you to tape, like for a little bit of, if you have a specific question. The Zoom thing is tough, where I think we are at a place, we've been doing it so long now that we have a handle on it. But, you know, I was casting something recently and the team wanted to do chemistry reads with the 4 leads. They were all young kids. And it was like, I had to talk to every kid's mother and tell them, like, you need an Ethernet cable, you need to do this. This is the background I want. And, you know, I had to talk these poor people through it. It was really at the height of everything. And then we get them on screen and it's like the Brady Bunch, the 4 of them. So they don't have the benefit of having the chemistry in person to help them have the chemistry while they're reading. Though honestly, they were amazing. And I couldn't believe that it went as well as it did with all of the struggles to get to that place. They were just such champs and troopers, and actors have been such troopers through this whole thing. But yeah, you don't get the benefit. You know, sometimes someone will come in and I'll be looking at them and hearing them talk and say, hey, I have something else. Can you just like stay for a few minutes and give them that? And 2 birds with 1 stone, and everything just takes a little longer.
Yeah, it is something from an actor's perspective. I mean, I think that was the reason why, you know, I booked so much when I first moved out here graduating, because I was able, they were doing the taping in the auditions, but it wasn't as important because we were doing more sitcoms, and, you know, I was able to move, and you can't do that in this little small thing when you're doing the sitcom world. So I'm sure a lot of people do miss that. Lindsay, did you want to add anything, or Robin, or go ahead? Oh, wait, you're on mute.
Sorry, I got kids screaming in the background, so as much as I can be. I really enjoy some aspects of the new normal. If this is the new normal, I don't know how much it will change or what, or when we'll get back to normal. I don't know, but I enjoy a lot of aspects of it, and then others not so much. The aspects I enjoy are reading pretty much the entire supporting cast in a week or less, potentially. I can watch hundreds of tapes in a day if I needed to. So it has made me really efficient in terms of casting supporting cast, like smaller roles that these actors don't need to be driving across town, spending money, parking, gas, sitting in a waiting room. Like, people don't, it's unnecessary for these roles that, like, and I would totally agree with Stacia, put a couple of takes down, especially for like really small characters and you don't know exactly what they're looking for. I try to make the instructions as rounded and informative as possible, and I'm available for questions if people have them. I try to send the script whenever possible. I do a lot more groundwork to get the appointments out and make it informative and helpful for the actors. Just so that when I get those, hundreds of tapes in for a bunch of different roles, they're not all making the same mistake. And, it's, I've done that before. So I think I love that part of it where we can, and in the future, maybe some of that will be in person, maybe all of that will stay on tape. But I think for these smaller roles where I can totally trust the actors to give me a few different takes, have fun with it. If we need to do it again, I'll ask for something different. I think it takes a lot more work up front to communicate everything that you're looking for and be really clear, rather than relying on the face-to-face like redirection. But I really appreciate the efficiency that it affords us and the time, like Nicole was saying, the time I have now to like focus on other things like researching and watching reels and doing things that I really didn't have enough time to do before, a lot of the creative stuff and also the organizational stuff, everything. I didn't have any time to do that before because I would be sitting in a room reading, which was fun, my favorite part of my job. So I do miss it, but it didn't afford me the time to like really round out all the things that I felt like I needed to be doing. Chemistry reads, big director sessions for leading roles, 100% will benefit from being in person in the future. I think there's an element of like, it's fine to do maybe the first round on tape like that, but once you get into chemistry reads and really getting to know how an actor works and their process, you do get some of that on Zoom, and it's worked really well. Like this year, I think actors, like Stacia said, have been doing an amazing job, and I feel like casting's really adapted, and we're making it work. And I don't think the work is suffering. I think it's just, hard. But so I feel like in the future will be a lot of smaller roles will be on tape, and then maybe just there'll be a reason to like be in person for like just more consequential like reads, like chemistry reads, big director sessions. We do a lot of meetings, and there are a lot of meetings that are so much more, people can meet it with like no notice from different sides of the country, just like so much more readily, and people are just more used to that format. So I just think it's so much more efficient. There's so much more opportunity for actors to tape because I can read so many more actors for every role. But there are definitely going to be some
it's gonna
in person.
But I think everybody adapts. Robin, if you would like to answer that, you can. And I also want to throw a question to you if you did not want to take that. I want to throw the question on casting assistant. Like, how does a person get started in casting, and what makes a good assistant? But if you want to answer that last one, and then you can jump into the next one. So
no, I was just gonna say, like, I think it's just sped things up a lot. Like, we'll get a call for a job, we say yes, they need tapes like in 48 hours. We're like, so it's definitely sped things up, I think, all around. I haven't had to send out I don't think we've had to send out like day of audition yet, but I've definitely seen them, or like 4 hours we need some tape. So yeah, definitely. As far as casting assistant, I think I can only speak from my experience. When I started interning at Nickelodeon, that was like a family connection for me. So I went in through a family member, and then how I got an assistant job with a theater casting director. I actually, the casting director came to speak at the school, and I was like, I'm going to go up to her, and because I was like, I need a job, I need a job while I'm going to school, and I want to work in entertainment, like whatever aspect. So I went up to her right after, and I said, hey, do you need an assistant? And she was like, not right now, but I might. And she called me like 2 months later. So I did that. And then when I worked at Sandy Alisi, you know, she had so many big films. I walked into the office, and I walked into the office actually to like try to get work as an actress, you know, because at the time, and then I left the office. It was when you could sign up for casting work, you know, because I was like 21. I was like, needed some cash, you know. I was like, I need some cash somewhere. So I walked into the office, I signed up with her, and I walked out, and I heard this voice in my head go, you can work here. So I went back in, I literally turned back around, I went back in, I talked to the guy, and I said, are you hiring? And he said, we are. And they hired me that day. Yeah. And then it was really cool because her office was, or her registration office at the time, Nicole, I don't know if you remember the casting director's name, but she was a huge Hallmark casting director. She used to have like a monopoly on Hallmark. I actually don't even know if she's alive.
I don't remember her name either. Yeah.
But she was a huge Hallmark casting director.
Was
and
it Penny
so
Perry?
Was it who?
Was it Penny Perry?
Oh, maybe that was her name. But we shared an office with her. Yeah.
Working for.
Oh yeah. So we shared like a adjunct office kind of with her.
Was it in Sherman Oaks?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I started. But a lot of this stuff, just like a lot of jobs in entertainment, you have to start, or you don't have to, but you start as an intern. You know,
I give a shout out to Claudia Zeiser, who's actually on the Zoom right now, who is an Emerson alum. She came to us from Liz Beckebeck, our producer friend, and she started as an intern, and now she's an assistant and getting paid when we can pay her. So, she's here. I just want to say that.
But most of the time, you know, the assistants, and when I was assistant, I did everything. Mainly, I was a lot of organization, and then sometimes I would read with actors, but a lot of organization, like organizing the auditions. And then I mean, like everyone has said here, the casting part of it is the most fun, you know, to read with people and to see how everything works that way. But like Claudia helps us out. She helps us watch. She sometimes she'll do a first pass of tape for us. So, you know, so when Nicole and I go in, you know, then we only have like 50 tapes to watch as opposed to like 100. So she does that for us. And then checking avails, I used to do that a lot. So it's more like organizational stuff, I think, for an assistant, but yeah.
Anybody else want to jump in? Because I know that there's some people here that want to go into the casting world.
I would love to speak to this. I have two things to say. The first thing is, if you are finding that you're having trouble getting a casting assistant job, if you can find some kind of other administrative position, it doesn't even have to frankly be in the industry. Those skills are 100% transferable, because the casting assistant job mostly is administrative stuff. Being organized, phones, being able to, you know, write an intelligent email and concise and all of those things. And if I'm looking at a resume, if they don't have casting assistant experience, if they have experience in something else like that, it helps and it catches your eye, because the assistant job in casting is a learning job anyway. So there's already going to be training involved in that. But if I know you have some kind of foundation elsewhere, it's helpful. The other thing I want to say is, so the Casting Society of America actually has a training and education program for people that want to break into casting. I'm actually on the committee, the training and education committee, that is developing the content. I will actually be teaching one of the classes this November, which is terrifying and exciting. But the point of the class is, if you haven't done it, if you don't have the experience, it essentially takes you through all of the aspects. So there's a class just on like who's who in production, who and how does it relate to you as an assistant in casting. And there are days that are all about auditions and scheduling auditions. And, you know, there are days that teach you what tests are with the studio and the network and who those players are. So it's really comprehensive in that way. So when you do finally get that job or even get the interview, you can say, well, maybe I've not done the job yet, but I'm familiar with the terms and I've taken the class and I've already made that first step. So it's really a great program. It's through Casting Society Cares, which is the nonprofit arm of CSA. If you wanted to look into that, definitely recommend.
I'm so jealous. Whatever you're eating right now, I want some. Okay. No worries, no worries. Oh, wait, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I wake up so early with these kids, so I'm like so hungry by this time.
No worries, no worries. Do you guys believe that casting director workshops work? Do you guys support them? Do you guys do them? What do you guys think of those?
Fergalicious definition, make them boys go loco.
Somebody is playing some music. Okay.
That was great.
Hey. Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if anybody agrees. I like them. I think they work, you know. I mean, whether you're paying for coaching, paying for that, paying for headshots, you're kind of paying to audition now anyway, because you got to have lights and a backdrop and this account and that account, you know. I don't mind them. I didn't see like anything wrong with it, because like, so what, you have to pay well, when they were going on, like, I think some of them are going on online. I mean, I'm not really sure how it's working right now, because I haven't done one in a while, but like, yeah, they don't bother me. Like, it's just another way to meet someone, you know. And if you have $25-30 and it helps you meet someone and do something for your career, and you get to meet the casting person, and great, you know. Like, great. You know, you're already paying $14.99 to submit yourself or whatever on Breakdown. Like, you know, that's how I feel about it. But I know that people have different opinions about it. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay. No, I mean, these are good questions, because some people, you know, some people love them, some people don't. And I know there was a whole big, huge controversy thing that happened a couple of years ago. So that's why I was curious to know how casting directors, you know, how do they feel about it now? So that's good to know that you can still meet a casting director and do these casting director workshops.
I don't have a problem with them. I think it's a really good tool for actors. It can be, at least. And I know, like, I used to do them before, and I would remember I mean, I know that's not supposed to be the point, but of course I would remember actors from the workshops, and I still to this day remember some that made an impression, maybe like 0.02% of them. So it's not like, you know, a magic, you know, pill or anything, but I don't have a problem with them. And I love teaching. I enjoy it. I get a lot out of it. So I would do it willingly. To be honest, that whole controversy that happened a few years ago just like scared me off, though I've never done one since, and I never will again. It just like scared, like, I don't have a problem with them happening, and I never did, but that just made me too nervous, and I wouldn't ever do them again. I would teach a class, like an acting class, or like I just guest taught a theater class at my alma mater, but just like as a volunteer thing, or, you know, in some kind of like official class capacity, just because I would be too nervous to that. And I've just, like, my life is different than it was when I was teaching the class. These kids, and I don't really have the time to stay up late at night teaching acting classes anymore. But I don't think it's a problem, and I think actors and casting directors would get a lot out of it, and I feel bad that they don't happen as much anymore, but it's just my opinion.
Can you explain, you guys, can you explain to the actors that are out there? Prime example, I went in for Kenan and Kel probably 8 times when that was on back in the day. And I remember I got to a place where I was like, I remember I was going to tell my agent, I'm never going back in there again. I don't know why they keep calling me. I'm not getting hired. They obviously don't like me. And I went through this whole spiel. And of course, that was the one episode that I ended up booking, the star. And mind you, at that time, it's when I first moved to LA. So I had just started. I think I only had like 3 shows under my belt at the time. And that was like my 4th one, so but in my mind, I was thinking, oh, they must not like me, yet they're still calling me in. Can you just explain that to the actors out there so that they can stop being, because, we get in our heads. We're always like, oh, they must not. Can you just help people to understand what the process is and why do you keep calling back? And, I think it's something that they should know that it might actually mean a good thing.
It's always a good thing. If you're called in more than once, it means they saw something in you somewhere. So, and also frankly, being called in twice there might be a year in between. There might be 2 years in between. There are some actors we call in and we can't find that right job for them. And then we find one and it's amazing. And we all are excited because we've been really invested in that person. And I think another thing to understand is there are so many voices that make these decisions. So we collaborate and we give our expertise, but the final decision does not rest with us. You have us, you have your creative team. If there's a studio, you have your studio. If there's a network, it's this whole chain. So if you don't book the job, but you are called back somewhere else for that office somewhere down the line, that is a success.
Yeah.
So
I think she said it all.
Yeah. But there's so many times. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
I just think it's only a good thing.
Yeah, it's only
the casting office likes you. Maybe the producers didn't like you.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe they were wrong.
And maybe they've been wrong.
Well, can we be honest? Usually they are wrong and we're right.
But it's always a good thing just to get called in. I can't tell you, it happens all the time. Like we see someone audition and then, Nicole and I have like 3 or 4 projects going at once, a commercial here, a print job here, whatever, we do so many things. So it's like, oh, that person like is a really great actor. Like I'm going to put them over here in this, or I'm going to do that. You just never know. You never know. And you never know what projects casting is going to get either. Like one day, we always laugh at this, but like one day we're casting Lifetime movies and the next day we got an Oscar. You know what I mean? You like don't know. And it's the same thing with acting too. Like you don't know. You don't know.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we start as we get to know actors and we keep bringing them back. We do develop some favorites that we're rooting for. We were working on an indie film in Canada and I literally like cut a reel for an actor that I believe should be this freaking role so hard. And I could not convince my director. Because he had, a little celebrity name in mind that fell through. So I was like, oh, here's my chance. And I was just like pushing and pushing and pushing. I'm basically doing his manager or agent's job, but that's why we keep bringing you guys back, because we believe in you. Even if the director's not feeling you for that specific thing or the producers aren't feeling you for that specific thing, we're fighting for you more than you might realize sometimes. So trust us with that. If we're bringing you back, it's for a reason, and have some gratitude about it and have some excitement about it and have some positivity about it. Because if you go into that negative lack place, you're going to start pushing people away, even unintentionally and energetically. You're pushing opportunities away as soon as you get into that, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. This is why I keep getting callbacks, but I never book the job. It's like, first of all, you get an audition, you already won the lottery. Because look, Stasia's seeing 5,000 headshots. We usually see 1,000 to 2,000 on an indie project. It's like, you already won the lottery. So be grateful for that audition. You get a call back. I mean, that's as well as like booking in our mind, especially the callback people. We're always going to remember you for the next job because you were good enough to get there, So just take every opportunity as a positive thing. Don't don't let that negative self-doubt crap creep in there.
So, question for lately, the last several years, maybe it's always been that way, but I found that the last several years, especially when what do you call it, American Idol, and all of those things started to play a part, where people who were what do you call reality star people, I found things had changed in casting, where it seemed like there were a lot of offers, even though other actors that were in the B list or whatever list were still auditioning. Can you explain a little bit how that works? Like, you're still auditioning, although you're sending out offers. How does that work? And how, is there still an opportunity for an actor to still get the job, even though they're sending out offers to those A-list people that they already have on the list?
If, in my experience, I'll just make sure I'm not muted.
You're not.
If I'm auditioning a role, it's not for no reason. So there is an opportunity there. Sometimes there are roles that we're open to reading people and having somebody win the role that way, and also will consider people who will not read or are offer only, or just like from a list that I made. But I wouldn't read for the role if there was no reason to read for the role. It might be because we need a backup option for this role in case, the offers don't work out.
Mhm.
I don't typically read a role while an offer is out. I feel like if I can ever avoid that, I will do my best to avoid that. Has it happened before? Secretly, yes. Is that typical? No. Do I like doing that? No. And I try to avoid it. It happens very, very, very rarely. So if I'm actively reading a role, at least for me, there's not an offer out for the role. Is it possible we could read the role and then make an offer to somebody who didn't read? For sure. And maybe we want to have those reads and the choices from those reads in case we're not able to get somebody that we're offering to, or the person that we're offering to says no, or 3 people that we offered to say no, and then we need somebody who we already know wants to do it. So I think if we're reading for a role, that means we're considering people who read for the role, whether it's primarily, secondarily, down the line. There's never a reason that I would read for a role when I'm never going to consider the reads.
That's good. That's good. Have you guys ever had to recast somebody? What was that process like? Which I have to say, it happened to me once, and everybody was like, well, we know that Christie's not going to get recast because everybody loved her. They gave me a standing ovation when I left. And when I got recast for this pilot, I was devastated. Come to find out, they thought I looked too old to play 16. And then I ended up booking Passions playing 16 5 months later or 6 months later. So it's like, you just don't know, you know what I mean? Yeah, but the whole time I was like, I must have been horrible, so you don't know. But what was the experience like for that? I mean, obviously that was like, oh, it just had to do with the, I looked, looked too old. But then there's some people who are just bad actors and, or maybe bad attitude or drugs or something. Can you guys talk about any of those experiences? If you're allowed to talk about it.
I don't think we've ever had that kind of situation, have we, Robin, where we've already been in production and then we've had to recast?
No, we haven't had that yet, because we haven't done like a TV show. We've done like a podcast, but nothing like that. I mean, we've had to recast like last minute on stuff, but that's kind of just
like if somebody gets sick or they get another job, that's like more money.
Yeah, it's just part of the business,
Yeah.
I mean, they recast Kevin Spacey. We could think about it, you know what I mean?
I would just say nobody wants to ever recast. It is not fun. It's a horrible experience, regardless of what the reason is. If the actor had an attitude, that has happened in my experience. And it just was really not going well. Or if it's, the network changed their minds now that they're hearing it out loud, that happens. Or, hey, we totally want to reconceive this role, but we love her. Is there anything else in the show? Maybe, I don't know. And it's just, it really hurts us. It hurts me. First of all, the work involved. There's a lot of work involved. And sometimes the turnaround is so fast. But also it just sucks. You just think about that actor that's, losing that job for whatever reason. And it's like, ugh. So we never want it to happen. Anyway, I can't speak more specifically than that, but
I understand.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. It's not fun. It is part of the job and it does happen. And it's not always like the actor's fault. Sometimes it is. Either they just, or sometimes it's a little bit of both. Like, yeah, you can't speak too specifically about certain situations, but it's always last minute. It's always under stress. And sometimes you don't end up with the better of the two options. And that's really sucks. And it really is, it can be really sad and hard, and agents might yell at you, and it's just a stressful thing. You take a lot from a lot of different directions when that happens, and I just do my best to avoid it if possible from the beginning, but it's not always in our control or power to avoid. So
Okay.
We'll say difficult agents. I'd like to speak to that a little bit, because we did have that experience where we were putting out offers and there was an agent who was being like slow about getting us an answer. And at first we were patient because this actor was on set and like we knew that. But then we gave a deadline that we're like, hey, we need to find out, because we're like 3 weeks out from shooting. And she actually gave Robin attitude when she called to check if she had gotten to read the script yet. And she said something really just rude, like, well, I can't predict the future. Like something weird. And so we reported that back to the producers and they were like, we're moving on, pull the offer. So that can happen too. Sometimes like actors don't know why they don't get jobs, and sometimes it's your rep. I mean, just producers
Get
like
nasty.
sense that your rep's going to be difficult, so they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, that's always a tricky thing, because I always tell my agents, listen, I don't care what it is, you need to run it by me first. It might be something I might want to do, even if it is a low budget situation, but not all agents do that and they play that hard game. But also the flip side of it, I've also been in situations where my agent didn't fight enough and I was a lead on a project, but somebody else who wasn't a lead got more money and more perks and other, because, actors, we talk, and I'm like, really? So how do you find the the fine line of fighting for what you're worth? You know what I mean? Because I know you guys are the middleman. You're fighting between the producers and the agent for the actor, so how does that work, and how does an actor fight for themselves?
That's an interesting thing, because let's say someone with 5 years experience gets the lead in a film and there are more days on set and all that, but we cast a supporting role at somebody that's been in the business 25 years. They might get more perks because they've been around longer and have a bigger career and a bigger resume. Mm-hmm. And they're older, so they might need more, things physically, like their own trailer or something. Whereas, our lead, who's 18, who's like new to the business, might have to share a trailer, So there's different things to consider in that way too.
Yeah. Well, we do budgets too. That's something a lot of people don't know, that I make guest cast budgets and submit them to my producers. And essentially we're advising them on what we think the role is going to cost you, So if there's anything you're seeing that is a problem, let's talk about it now before I have a choice, because we want to get ahead of that problem. And that's where our expertise of like what, you know, the market demands for a certain kind of actor, like that's where we have those conversations. And it is tough because technically we work for the show and we don't, so we're kind of in this place where if they're lowballing someone, we need to find the way to respectfully say, listen, this is, if you want this actor, this is what it's going to take. They might walk away and you need to be prepared for them to walk away if you're not going to pay them what they're worth. A lot of people like to, you know, try for A-list talent with the, you know, very small budget. And then conversely, you know, you have some agents that fight for things that we frankly don't think is warranted for that actor. It kind of goes in all directions. So I really feel like there needs to be a clear relationship between, first of all, us and the agents, but also the agent and their client, to make sure that, you know, everyone is communicating what is appropriate and what they want and what they're not willing to settle for and what the boundaries are. And, you know, it's a very delicate dance in that way.
Mhm.
I would agree with that, and say that also, at least for me, I try to like be as upfront as possible. If there is no flexibility for the budget on a role, I will
Yep.
say that in the appointment. So I'll say this role pays scale. If that is a deal breaker, that's okay. I understand, but just don't audition or don't send a tape. This role is a local hire. If you are not a local hire, don't audition. I'll try and put sort of the non-negotiables, if I know that there are some, in the appointment to avoid that disappointment later, somebody feeling like they wasted their time going on tape for something that is going to pay scale, and they're not willing to do that. And so I try to be as upfront as possible. And I would just say, you should ask for whatever you can ask for or feel like is fair. Like, I never begrudge an agent or a manager for asking for anything on their client's behalf. That's their job. Producers and not directors, producers will get annoyed potentially. But I don't get annoyed with that. I think it's fine to ask for whatever. On the flip side, it's fine for me to say no. So I will advise producers, like, this is what they're asking for. You can say no, especially if they're asking for something that the only time I get annoyed is if I'm asked for something that I was very clear up front about. Like if I said this is the rate and it's non-negotiable, if I said you're supposed to be a local hire, but you're not, and you're asking for a flight. These are the things that annoy me. So I think if there's something that there's no boundaries set ahead of time, ask for whatever you want, but be prepared for the answer to be no. And everybody has to decide at what point something is of value to them. And the actor is free to walk away from a deal, and the producer is free to walk away from a deal, and free to say no at any point in the process. And I think people will find a natural balance that way. I don't think you should be ashamed or scared to ask for something that you truly believe you should value. I don't think you should just like ask for $1 million every time you get an offer for scale, but like, you know, just if there's something you feel like you have worked your way up to and you deserve a single card, or, you know, you've had it several times in the past, like there's no problem asking for anything. That's your rep's job.
And I,
Oh, sorry.
oh,
Sometimes,
no.
yeah,
Go ahead.
sometimes with money, like in your situation, and also depends like in what order you were cast in. Because sometimes, like, you know, we'll go out to the star first to get that money name. And then, you know, they put a lot of money into that person, plus producer points, plus whatever. So the rest of our cast is like delineated. Like we have this casting budget, this much is going to the star, this much we can go to supporting. But then as like more suggestions, I mean, people change their minds all of the time. So the money is always like shifting. So it kind of, sometimes it depends like when you came into the equation, like when your contract was signed. Because by the time you came in, maybe they ran out of money. Or maybe the craft service was like, I need shrimps. Like, we don't know, you know, like, or the art director is like, I need an extra 20 grand, you know, and the producer's like, you know, so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my situation, we both had the same agent, but she had a manager that was like hardcore.
Yeah.
And so he came in on the deal, and then and I was like, so then it became this whole big, huge thing with me and my agent. And of course that relationship ended. That was a long time ago. It was like so long ago.
Yeah.
I now know my worth, so to speak. But if there's any questions out there that you guys have, please put them in the chat. I have plenty of questions to go through, trust me. So I can talk the rest of the, the time that we have, 20 more minutes. Let me ask you on a flip side from a person of color question. Back when I started, the late 90s, early 2000s, my agent was so amazing because he would send me out for lead roles, even though it would say, Caucasian, blah, 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 blah. And, always got callbacks, producer sessions, 3 calls or whatever, which was always great. But we know now during that time period, they were not casting Black people. It just for leads. That's how it was back in those time periods. And I actually had 2 people at CBS tell me, yeah, he didn't want to see you. You were the only Black person we allowed to come in to audition. And then he treated me like crap when I went in. With that being said, my question is, do you guys see things changing? Do you think that if it says Caucasian, or if it says African-American, or Asian, is it okay for the agent to submit different ethnicities for different roles if they feel like their client, and we're talking about good agents who like, my client could kill this. What are your thoughts about that?
As far as pitching, casting is just like anything else. It's trends, people move in trends, like jeans, like frozen yogurt. Do you know what I mean? It's trendy. It's what's selling, for us, like at this point, we just have to be really specific now. So like most producers, writers, directors, they have like an idea in their mind, and it's your representation's job and also our job to kind of throw like wild cards in there, whether you're disabled, whatever your skin color is, who your mother is, who your father, it doesn't, it's like, it's left up to so many things,
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like, if I'm looking for a Caucasian person and an East Indian person submits, I'm probably not going to take them because it's probably wasting their time. And I know what my director wants.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can put him in as like a wild card, but not picking him is nothing against that person. It's just like, he had a vision in his head of like what he wanted. And it's like our job to support the vision. But are we like, am I against agents pitching? No, not at all. So that's how I feel about it. And that's how I felt about it the whole time since I've been working in casting. I just think certain creatives have certain visions in their head. Yeah. But it's also our job to bring different options as well. Even like, little people for other roles or, like, or whatever. We cast RJ Mitty in one of our roles in our Canadian company that we work with. And the whole thing that I wanted to do is I didn't want to cast RJ Mitty as a person with cerebral palsy. I just wanted to cast an actor. So it's kind of looking beyond any of that and just seeing like who the actor is. But I can't help it if my director has like a certain vision. And that goes for any skin color. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, maybe they did have a Black person in mind. Am I going to throw a white person in there? Like, I don't know. So I don't know how you guys feel.
I have a lot to say about this topic. I feel like your question about, is it changing, or is that, are things shifting? 1,000 billion% for sure. Even since I started in I mean, my internship was in 2005. So since then, which is a long time ago, but not that long ago, I don't know. A million % things are changing. And I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but I feel like casting has been ahead of the rest of Hollywood on this issue. I feel like we've been pushing for equity on screen long before it was such a center stage conversation as it is now. And I feel like almost every project that I work on, it's not just a goal, but it's like the goal to make sure that we're honoring the not just the idea of equity, but just wanting the cast to reflect the world that we live in, and also wanting to remain open to all body types, sexual orientations, abilities, race and diversity is one of these things. And to me, to answer that question about if it says on a breakdown, for me, if it says a specific ethnicity on a breakdown, it's for a reason. If there's no reason, maybe it's familial, like we're trying to match a family, where this character is like, it's part of the character inherently. Does it bother me that somebody would submit otherwise? No, it doesn't. But usually, especially if it says somebody's Caucasian, it's for a reason. If somebody, a lot of times somebody will say like, okay, well, we want to cast this role, but we don't want someone who's Caucasian. We want somebody who's not Caucasian. So I will literally list as many things as I can think of that are not Caucasian. And ideally that's who submits. Like, it's for a reason. When I'll put an ethnicity on a breakdown, if there's no mandate, I'll say, please submit all ethnicities, or I'll say nothing. And I'll consider all ethnicities. But it's definitely changing. I don't think I've cast a single movie in like the last 5 years. Maybe I'm wrong. You can look at my IMDb. That is like 2 white leads. Whereas before, 5 years ago, for sure, probably most of what was being put out there was at least, I think, mostly white leads. And so I think things are changing, and it's not just me. I'm happy with what's happening, but it's the producers and directors and the stories that are being written. It's on so many different levels, right, that we're casting a movie based on someone else's vision, and we have a say in that process, but it's really happening on every level, not just casting. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. And I'm happy to see the way things are going. It's so much more talent available to us. And with Zoom, it's like, we're not just stuck in LA reading people in person, can consider people all over the world from different countries. And so I think our content is only getting better as a result.
And I just want to say that, I might have asked the question wrong, because it's maybe it's more like there was like this thing that we all knew, if it was a lead for a major TV show, if it was the lead person, even if they didn't say Caucasian, we knew that it was Caucasian. We knew that it was going to be, that they were going to be white. But you would have casting, agents that would submit, and then of course we knew in the long run they weren't going with a particular color. But like you said, things have changed, I believe, in the last 10 years. And I just want to make sure, because there are some people of color that are on here, I wanted to make sure that we brought that up so that they don't feel discouraged or feel like they're behind the 8 ball. And that's why it was important to bring up that question. I wanted to ask a couple of things that were on here, unless you wanted to jump in and say something.
I just think like their question, if anything, it's like the opposite. There's a real focus on bringing all kinds of voices into the ensemble of a cast. And so if there's no specificity in a role that's released, that's a lead, it's not just a white person. Like if it was a white person, I would, at least for my office, I would say that it was a white person and there would be a specific reason for that. Right. Otherwise, potentially it's even the opposite. It's usually like, yeah, we don't want a white person in this role. Like that happens a lot. And so, and I try and be specific about that as well. But usually if it says that you're open on a role, yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, I think that's important for everybody who's on here that is a person of color. They should know that. And the same thing with any of the disabilities. I just shot a short where the two women are deaf, and you don't really see that. A love story about two deaf actresses, and I didn't realize how, I realized, when people say, oh, I have no Black friends, or I have no white friends, or I have no Asian friends, I was like, wow, I have no deaf friends. And now I became this advocate for like, you guys should have somebody in there doing the, interpreting this, and, you become this advocate. So I wanted to make sure that people who could have a disability or who could be a person of color, that they can see the hope. Let me ask a couple of questions. While I'm reading these questions real quick, I want to ask, do actors need to be off book when they come into your audition room? And I'm going to read these questions while you're answering. And we'll try to make these quick because we have about 10 minutes. So we'll get to the point quickly and then try to get through all this stuff. Okay.
I say no. I think
it's all about what helps you.
Yeah. Get off book when you're paid, but be familiar enough with the material that you can give the audition well. Don't be in the page.
But you can look at it and you're okay.
100%.
If it hurts your presence and your ability to be present in the scene to be in the page, then get off book. If it doesn't, then don't.
Okay. Question says, are there any do's and don'ts for actors in regards to headshots, social media, auditions that would be detrimental to them that you can share?
I just say now, because everybody's auditioning like in their home studio, just have a blank wall behind you. Like I've seen books, I've seen washing machines, I see these magnets on, it completely distracts. That's the biggest thing. For headshots, you want something. Nicole's really good at this.
My biggest pet peeve is seeing a brick wall or trees totally in focus behind somebody's head. A really good headshot is like a rack focus, like a film camera would be. So your eyes are standing out, and that's what we're connecting to in the headshot. I think there should be a headshot of you and your essence. And then also whatever, like your archetype and niches as well. Not in like a costumey, like I'm putting a doctor coat on to play a doctor. I'm putting, you don't have to have the costumes, but you should have the essence of the roles that you want to attract, that if you get called in for that, you're going to kill it.
Nice. Anybody else before I go to the next one?
Just look like your picture.
Okay.
Simple. Close.
Oh, don't over retouch either.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me ask you, what makes in a audition on tape, what makes the actor stand out for you?
Well, for me, it's always believability. Do I believe what that person is saying? It's done.
Nothing like just a connection with the character and really like focusing on the craft, and none of the other stuff matters.
I would say if you're taping, do one take no matter what that feels like you're not doing enough. And that's probably the take I would use, because you want to make sure you're keeping it grounded and real. And if you don't have someone in the room directing you in that way, you might have that tendency to get bigger. So if you don't feel like you're doing enough, that's probably the sweet spot.
Okay. Have you ever worked on a project where an actor created their own work, like Fleabag, you know, those type of shows? And what does your role look like, and how is it different from a typical project? I think you guys kind of talked about this a little bit with being the independent projects, but anybody can jump in on that.
Nicole and I cast a show. It's a Kyle Dunnigan show. Kyle Dunnigan is a big comedian on Instagram. I think he dated Sarah Silverman, a big comedian. We worked on his pilot. It never got picked up. But I thought it was super fun because it's comedian, and I went to set and everyone was just like improvising here, improvising there. But also Kyle had a lot of creative control with the producer. So that's how it was, I guess, a little bit different. It didn't feel as like strict, you know, I could like throw that person in and they could go off, and it was actually really fun going to set for that one to watch them all work. So
love it. Okay.
I've worked on a lot of things where the star is also the creator, and they usually, it's usually great. They usually have a lot of friends that they want to suggest and involve, and they can usually like put in a good word if you're making an offer, and they usually have a lot of ideas that are spot on because they're the creator of the show and often have a character. So
I love it.
Fun. It's helpful.
How about any skills that makes an actor more desirable when casting?
I don't know. For me, it's just like, you know, just do your job. Like, come in, do your audition, or submit us an audition, have confidence, believe in yourself, love what you do, you know, try not to be bitter. I know it's hard sometimes. Have excitement about what you do, love yourself. You know, it shines through. So
if we're talking about skills, like resume skills, like we need a skier, you better ski. If we need somebody who could horseback ride, you better know how to horseback ride.
They're like, you can find it.
You will be asked to do it. Not just, I know how to, you know, read my script and analyze the character. It's like, if we're talking specific skills, then yes, you should be proficient in those. And accents too. Some people think that they're really good at certain accents, but if, let's say I need somebody who sounds authentically British and it's an American who thinks they can do a British accent because they watch Downton Abbey, when I put you next to a British person, can you really compete with them? Like, or not? And like, be honest with yourself about that.
In an audition, if you mess up and you want to start again, is it okay to ask?
I think so. I mean, I've never had a problem with it. So, because I want them
to bring it in the second half of it.
Right. Well, I mean, we as casting directors, we want to get the best take that we can for our directors to see. We want to get the best that you can. So if it takes you a take, you know, I mean, I wouldn't be like, take 5, but like, you know, sometimes it takes you know, when we were auditioning a lot in person, I mean, we do callbacks in person, but sometimes people just need to feel a little bit more comfortable. I have no problem with it, but yeah.
We always say the first one's for driving here. Get one out. We'll do it again no matter what. Get a little comfortable. That's a Sharon Bialy trademark.
That's a perfect way to put it. Because like back in the day when we were driving all over the place, it's like you have to just like get rid of the
high stress. It's crazy. You're nervous. Like, we want to create an environment where you do well. So I look good because I brought you good options.
Yeah.
We all want you to do well.
I have another question here, but I wanted to piggyback and ask, have you guys seen people, because now people are using teleprompters. Can you tell that people are reading, and what do you guys think of that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the hearing
what if they're acting and you can tell that they're like, and you can see them reading like,
oh yeah,
seriously, the first I heard of this.
I've never heard of that.
Believe me. I've seen people, you see people put lines like on their wall, and so they're looking up and like looking down and looking up, and I'm like, dude, just like take a minute, just hold it, like hold the thing, like it's okay, like hold the script, it's okay. But yeah, I mean, I would just recommend not doing it. I mean, it's taking away from your audition.
Right. Okay. Elizabeth says, hi, everybody. Stacia, I was your ELA intern in spring of 2018.
Hi.
As an assistant, what's the best way to get connected with casting directors to find work? The CSA listings are sometimes few and far between. Is it appropriate to reach out to an office directly if you're interested in working there?
I think it is.
Yes, Robin did.
Even if you're not looking to hire then, something might come up in a month and they'll be like, oh, someone emailed me, I should look at that resume. So I don't see any problem with that.
Listen, in this business,
Agree.
you have to just be bold, and there's a right way of doing it, and you cannot be afraid. You have to go in with confidence, because no one is going to hire you as an actor, as a casting director, as a director, if you're not confident. No one's going to give you $10,000 to do a guest star or whatever on a show if you come in and you're not confident. So if you want to be in casting, you have to be bold enough to just walk in there and ask for it. And if they can, just say, okay, great, thanks. And then send them an email and follow up with them.
And if you're a fan of an office that does work on shows you really like, and you want to ask for an informational meeting, maybe with an associate there, that's also, maybe they don't have time, but maybe they do, you don't know. And even if they don't have time, again, you'll be on their radar a little bit. And the more you let people know what you want to do, the more you'll find they want to be helpful in that way. Like, oh, I have a friend in casting, maybe she'll do a drink with you or something. And you just never know.
And I also found that if you want something, sometimes asking somebody who's not in the direct field will also help you. So a director might help you get that casting director job, you know what I mean? And vice versa for other things. There's one more question. Malcolm said, super helpful tips so far. Thank you. Would any of the casting directors here want the actors here to send them material?
Send
material.
Headshots.
Can they send their headshot and resume to you? Would you guys be open to that?
Yeah, that's fine. I like to ask for like a link, like if you have an Actors Access link, that way your headshots are there, your reel is there, and everything's in one nice little neat place.
Nice. Okay, well, everybody, first, thank you for all the wonderful questions that you guys asked Travis and Alexandria and everybody who put in there. And I want to thank all of you for coming on, for being open, honest, transparent. It was helpful even for me, and I've been in this business for 20 years now, just, hearing the different things that you guys have to deal with on a regular basis. It's always a journey. We know that this business goes up and down. 1 minute you're the it person, the next minute you're down here, and then you can rise back up. You could be the casting director who's winning all these awards and then doing indies and going back and forth. And I want everybody who's here that's listening to know that the business goes up and down. It's a journey. You have to continue to keep building relationships. It's all about relationships. Those 7 shows that I booked in 6 months were all relationships. Every last one of them. 5 of the 7 shows that I booked were all relationships. It's important that you do that. Don't burn bridges. And continue to keep in contact with people, because 20 years from now, you could be looking for something and the last thing they want to hear from you is, hey, remember I met you like 15 years ago? I heard you're casting such and such. Can you get me a job? No, you got to keep the relationship going. Again, we want to say thank you to Mark and Ross. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say real quick. Thank you for doing this. Melinda, if you have anything else you want to say. Thank you everybody for allowing me to be your host, your moderator. I do have a short called Amy Victoria. It's in 20 different festivals. The one that I directed with the 2 women who were deaf. I'm super excited. It's all over the world and you guys can check it out. I don't know how you can find it, but I don't know, maybe I'll put it in the chat or something. You can find my name and you can find it on my Instagram. But definitely watch the short. It's a beauty and a love. So That's
If you
it.
could put it in the chat, that would be great. And then I just saw Melinda put upcoming events here in the chat. And again, please reach out to us or Melinda if you have any panel ideas, things that you think would be helpful for us to cover. We're always looking for new events. And there's also a YouTube channel for Emerson College alumni where you'll be able to find some of these recordings for friends that you think might benefit from seeing these panels. So thank you so much for coming, and spread the word for the future. We really want to reach as many people as we can.
I'd
Thank
also
you.
just
Panelists.
quickly add, Melinda, you'll be sending out a survey after this in the next few days. So everyone who's here, just keep a look out in your emails. We'd love to get your feedback on the panel today, and it gives us some guidance for future panels as well. But we appreciate all your time. Thank you so much to our panelists. This was so wonderful. I learned a lot, and hope everyone did too.
Thank you so much, and thank you, panelists, and thank you, Christy. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thanks,
Nice
guys.
meeting everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Have a
care.
great day. Thank you.